Hey, this is Meredith Elliott Powell. You know what time it is. It is 8 a.m. Eastern, Saturday morning, time for Sales Logic. The biggest news of the week, Mark and I are not on a cruise ship. We could not be happier about that, right, Mark?
Yes, that is so true. We're back on firm land, back in somewhat of a normal schedule. Thank goodness. Cruise? Yeah, nah,
Yeah.
never.
Not our thing. But anyway, we've got a great show for you today. I'm going to go ahead and hit the intro and let's go ahead and jump in. All right, it is 8 a.m. Eastern, Saturday morning, time for Sales Logic, the show where we dive into the strategies, discuss the steps, everything that you need to know to sell effectively in today's marketplace. Before Mark tells you what we've got on tap for today, I like to tell you how the show works because we want you, the audience, to participate. If you've got a question, send it to saleslogicpodcast.com. We start the show off that way every single week, cover a hot topic, recommend a book, and because we want you to leave with return on investment, we deliver a lightning round. So, Mark, what is on tap for today?
Well, the topic today is building a 90-day sales strategy. Perfect time to do this as we head into the back half of the year. How do you build a 90-day sales strategy? Before that, let's get to the question. Comes from Ramona in Ventura, California. I'm feeling the pressure in my current role. The coming election has impacted my clients, their budgets, projects getting cut, and I think just fear. I don't know what to do or how to handle it. Give me some ideas. So, hey, I put that into the Sales Logic brain and it came back with 7 very distinct strategies. I only have time here on the show to share with you 2, but members can get access to this all the time. But hey, 2 of the things I want to share. Communicate proactively with your clients. Even though things may be awry, you still need to be communicating with them on a regular basis, sharing with them information. The other thing I want to share is be adaptable. Your value proposition may need to change slightly to fit the customer's needs in this very time-driven, sensitive mode. So those are just 2 of the 7. But Mayor, I'm sure you've got some other ideas. Jump in.
Yeah, what an interesting time, right? I think about, what has happened in the last couple of weeks, and it is no wonder that customers are a little frozen from the impact. I mean, we've had an assassination attempt on former President Trump. We've had President Biden step down. We've had Kamala Harris move in as the presidential candidate. Visits to the U.S. from Netanyahu. I mean, quite a bit going on in the marketplace. Everybody speculating. So it is not unusual that your customers would freeze. So that would be my number one, is to say, okay, this is a moment in time. Everybody's trying to get their legs up under them and trying to figure out exactly what is happening. The second is you can only control what you can control. And you really need to focus your time and your attention there. Now, you're already struggling a little bit. So I think where I would start is to really look at what I'm currently doing and ask myself what we have talked about so often on this show. What's working? What isn't working? What do you need to do more of, and that is moving forward, and focus your attention there?
So good advice. And I'm going to add to this. What's so interesting is it's easy for us to get caught up in what we feel the issues are. Yesterday, I got an email from a friend of mine who sells in France. And she made the comment how things are just totally, again, changed because of the Olympics, because of everything happening there. You see, there's always something going on. And what's very important for us to understand is what we feel, and in Ramona's case, it's both her and her customers, so this applies to both sides, but it's easy for us to get caught up in something that doesn't apply to the customer, or the customer to be involved in something that we don't see. And this is what's absolutely key. First of all, change is going to happen. You look back over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, let me tell you something. Every time I turn around, things are changing. Well, guess what? They've been changing a lot lately.
Yeah.
We have to be flexible. And I think I'm going to go back to what it said in the Sales Logic brain. Be adaptive. Be adaptive. Your value proposition I'm not saying to throw it out with the bathwater. No, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you may have to change it slightly. In other words, you may have to scale it down. You may have to shift the ROI approach. You may have to shift the outcome that you're delivering. But you can only do that by really spending a tremendous amount of time with your customers. This is not the time. But hey, here's the biggest mistake people make. And I got a note like this yesterday. A person was absolutely negative. Don't be negative to your customers. Customers, if they've got problems, last thing they want to have is have a salesperson walk through the door, pick up the phone, or be on a Zoom call with them and be negative to them. You have to be the positive voice, because otherwise there's no reason for them to be listening to you.
Well, I would add to that, first of all, really double down and focus really strong on your customers. Mark, what you just said about being adaptable and looking, not throwing the value proposition out, but looking at the value proposition really leads into the topic for today, which is, building a 90-day sales process. Think about the fact that we are recording this in July of 2024. So we're just heading into third quarter, backed up by fourth quarter. They are going to be volatile quarters. I mean, it's an election here, not just in the US, but in like 70 countries around the world. Everybody's speculating as to what's going to happen with interest rates, what's going to happen with inflation. The world is going to stall a bit because we're in the middle of an election. So that is the value of a 90-day plan. You want to try some things for about 90 days, and you need 90 days to see if those strategies work. Then you need to assess it. And if they're not, just like Mark said, you've got to be adaptable, because there is more happening outside in the sales process than inside in the sales process. And you need to pay attention to those things.
I love what you're saying there, because again, this whole thing of being able to test something for 90 days. So many times salespeople will, I'll try something for a week or two, and then they give up the ghost. You got to be consistent. You and I both talk about this a lot. It's about the consistency. You and I both have metrics that we stay absolutely focused on. And every day you're making sure that you're achieving these metrics. What are the metrics? It's your activities. So as you build a 90-day sales strategy, be very careful that you don't sit there and I'm going to try this, and you don't get a response for 2 or 3 phone calls or something like that, and you automatically assume the strategy doesn't work. You have not done a statistically viable test. This is why a 90-day sales strategy is so key. You've got to create your plan, and you've got to stick with it. Don't run from it, because if you run from it, it's amazing how you will always be changing. And you know what you're going to do? You're going to wind up with 12, 30-day sales strategies every year.
So Mark, let's start there. Let's kind of move into the topic. Where does somebody begin who maybe doesn't even have a sales strategy? What is a 90-day sales strategy, and how do you start to build one?
Well, don't start what you can't finish. So you got to make sure that your plan is set up to where you have X number of contacts that you can reach. And these are going to be both existing customers, and they may be new prospects. And again, you've got to have a balance, because again, if all you're doing is chasing existing customers and trying to get them to buy more, not good. You've got to have that balance. It's that ABC. You and I, we've talked about this before. You've got those large opportunities, you've got those smaller opportunities. You've got to have that balance. So you've got to determine, what can I manage in my time frame? And believe me, you can manage a lot more in your time frame than you realize if you make an all-in commitment. And this is the other challenge, because so many salespeople are caught up in being busy, but they're not productive. So you got to sit there and say, what am I going to clear off my plate? How much time am I going to have each day to be selling? And then how do I fill that? So that's kind of the initial step. I'd love to hear from you. Hey, I love the comment from Dave Sanderson. Be consistent, be determined, be willing to work for it. Boy, that's spot on with what I just shared. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, so well said. Consistent, sexiest word in sales. So I just built a 90-day sales strategy for a company. I was in Pittsburgh on Tuesday. And we just built one. Now, they had never really had a plan in place. Now, they've been selling, but there's a difference between selling and a plan. And I'm going to argue you have to have a plan. I mean, if you're not tracking and measuring, like, I lift weights 3 times a week and I log what I lift because I'm trying to see, am I building muscle? Am I doing what I need to do? You have to be able to track it. So we had to really start at the top, is that their avatar, their ideal customer, was not focused enough. Like, we really needed to get on a sheet of paper the 50 people we were going to go after in the next 90 days. So it isn't enough to have an ideal target. If you want a 90-day sales plan, I'm looking for the names of the people you want to go after. And then of that names you want to go after, what percent of that do you need to close? Like, we put together our top 50. I had mentioned 100, but they're like, no, that's too much. I'm like, fine, we'll pull it back to 50, because they only need 30% of those to close in order to be successful. And I like a prospect list that's 3 times the number you need to close to be working, because you're probably going to close 20 to 30% of your prospect list, in an effective time frame. So that's going to be where I want you to start. I want you to get really clear. Mark, I don't know how you feel about this, but when I build 90-day sales strategies, I really like a visual. There is something so powerful about putting on one side of the room the names you want to move. And as you move them, moving them over there. Because what I told the group was, I said, the moment you get them on a sheet of paper, you'll find opportunity with that. Like, it puts those names in the front of your brain.
I love what you're saying there, because you're saying be specific. And I love Natalie's comment this morning. She says, set small goals each day, sprint goals and long game goals. And this is the whole thing. It's about being specific. And this is what's so key. Now, I'm going to come back and I'm going to challenge a couple things. You got to look at, how long is your sales process? I work with a lot of companies that have a very complex, long sales process. And a 90-day sales process for them is going to get them into the discovery and the demo phase. It's not going to get them to the close, but it's going to get them to the discovery and the demo phase. So you got to understand, what is your sales cycle? How long does it take for you to work a customer through? Because this is going to be absolutely key, because you can overset your objectives. But I want to come back and I like this. You were pushing them to put 100 people in there, and they said 50. I'm not surprised that you said 100, because you're always one to push, which is so spot on. And so it is what you are. But the fact that they pushed back and said 50, I like that, because here's the whole thing. It is a waste of time to develop a sales strategy that you can't execute.
Exactly.
And if you've never gone through this process before, if you've never done this before, I would suggest to set a smaller sales strategy that you can achieve. You may not achieve the maximum results, but at least you're going to achieve it and accomplish it. And then the next 90-day cycle, you can set it bigger. You can set it bigger and bigger. But if the first time you go through this process, you fail, you say, oh, doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. Hugh, fantastic. In a downturn, we always need to take our narrative and modify toward the client needs. Change is a great opportunity. Absolutely. So here was another thing that we talked about in the 90-day sales strategy, is we put together they work in an industry that is election impacted, meaning if Republicans win, it's going to impact them one way. If Democrats win, it's going to impact them another way. And so we had a lot of discussion around a lot of those outside factors in putting together that the prospect list really needed to be pretty well diversified, because we needed to hedge our bets, because we have no idea what is going to happen. And it was interesting. They asked me, they said, how do you plan for uncertainty? And I said, pretty much what you got to do is embrace it. Don't argue about it. I don't want to waste any time in a sales strategy complaining about how bad things are going to be if Republicans win, or how bad things are going to be if Democrats win, because you can't control that. You may be valid, you may feel that way, but it is a waste of your time and your energy. I just got to mention this. Last night, I was having dinner with 2 incredibly highly successful men. and I was sitting between them. And in the middle of the three of us, they were wonderful to engage me in conversation. They were having a conversation back and forth about how they got where they got to. And the biggest thing that struck me in listening to them is their unbelievable ability to let go of what they cannot control. They do not waste their time and their energy. Like one of them, they were talking in their early years about how often they didn't get paid. They would do work and a customer would stiff them, and they didn't have any money at all. But they didn't waste their time trying to chase that down because they felt like they could make more money if they went out and chased new business. So you have to realize you have to embrace the things that you think are unfair and use them to grow the business.
You know, that really dovetails well with what Hugh said there in terms of change is a great opportunity. It certainly is. Absolutely. And I love the conversation that you had, because here's the whole thing. Average people, I find, get themselves tied up in knots regarding what they can't control. Top performers don't waste their time on it. That's the whole thing. Here's the whole thing. We can sit there and say that, oh, the economy is this or that. Now, if you have 100% of the marketplace, then it truly does impact you. But you don't. You have a subset of that. You may have 1 or 2%. So that means there's still opportunities out there. I go back to 08, 09. Remember we had that 08, 09 that was called the Great R. I can't say that word. And I chose not to participate. And what I found is that customers were eager to talk with me because I wasn't participating. I was, hey, we're going to find a way to power our way through this. And it's so key because, again, I can get caught up in the negative. Customers don't want to hear that. We got some great comments coming in. Hey, and a lot from our Sales Logic Mastermind members. Natalie, knowing the urgency for the client. What happens if they do nothing versus what happens? See, this is spot on, Natalie, because again, the number one problem we face is the customer making no decision, right? And so what we have to do is and they're going to get stalled out even more. This is why we have to be positive in how we frame our value proposition now more than ever.
Yeah, and I love what Hugh is adding here. When building a team environment, make sure to have the team capture 1 or 2 goals, agree on them as a team, and watch what happens. That micro, because that is so interesting, Hugh. That's exactly what we did. We all left that room with the 1 or 2 things that we were going to focus on to make happen. Because Natalie had said this before, that it is micro, small mini goals. Like, I'm not looking in 90 days to change the world. And I love what Mark said. You may have a sales cycle that takes 2.5 years, but you can still have a 90-day sales strategy, because 90 days is about making the progress. It's about getting to the first or the second step.
Yeah, the great comments coming in. Barry, great to hear from you. I always learn from, you always learn something from great. Hey, here's the whole thing. Put your targets on paper and you'll see opportunity. And the other thing, a lot of people who watch this show are just solopreneurs. You got to share those goals with somebody. You got to share those goals. This is so key, because accountability is absolutely, this is why we stress being part of the Sales Logic Mastermind, because it gives you a chance to share what your goals are. Here's the whole thing though, putting your targets on paper and then going through them every day. Every morning you take a look at them and you reflect on them, because you know what? It's interesting. You'll put your focus on what you focus on.
Yeah,
so,
completely.
I see so many people, what they do is they build a sales strategy and then they put it on the shelf and they'll look at it for 90 days. Mm-hmm. Hello. No wonder they're not going to achieve results.
Right. Well, Mark, you have grandchildren that need donuts. So
please
why
don't remind me of that.
Hey. So why don't we switch over and talk about the book and head into the lightning round?
Yes, the book this morning is Ignite Your Sales Strategy by Kevin Jones. Love this book, because again, it's one that you're going to read and you're going to come away with very specific strategies. I had not read it before it came up on the list for us to do, so I grabbed a copy of it and I'm digging into it now, and I love it. Love it.
Yeah, it's just I love the book. I haven't read it in a long time, but when I was looking for something for this week, I love the word ignite. And that is really what a 90-day sales strategy is about igniting your sales strategy. It's about really saying, okay, I'm not just going to do the same thing that I've done all the time. Something that is interesting to me is, when you get into exercising, you get into working out, whatever it is that you do. I mean, Mark, you're a runner, you plateau. If you do the same thing day in and day out for months, you hit a point where you plateau. You aren't building any more muscle. You aren't getting any faster. You aren't losing any more weight. Whatever your goals are, you're not doing them anymore. You plateau. And you need to go back and re-look at it. Your sales works the same way.
And especially if you're on a cruise ship where it's hard to get runs in. Okay, enough of those cruise ship stories anyway. Hey, let's jump into the lightning round. Are you ready?
I am.
10 hardest sales lessons you have ever learned. Go.
Oh, number one, there are so many. Number one is to not use networking effectively. That's a hard strategy for me because if I don't network effectively, I have to cold call.
2, I'm going to build on that. Be willing to be accountable to other people, thinking you can control everything yourself.
Number 3, focusing on goals and not focusing on behaviors. The power is in the behaviors.
Number 4, reciting your goals every morning when you start the day.
Number 5, hardest lesson in sales, not using a CRM. And I learned that one the hard way.
Ouch. I think we've all learned that. In fact, the question I love to ask is your CRM open right now? Number 6 there, not being willing to expand your knowledge base. You have to be continuously learning because what worked for you yesterday may not work today.
Yeah. Number 7 is not asking for the business, not literally asking for the business.
Number 8, not following up enough. I'm surprised you haven't mentioned this because that's something you own. Follow up, follow up, follow up. I got a response back from somebody this week who I reached out to 46 times.
I didn't mention that one because that was not a hard lesson for me. I've always been good at me. I'm talking.
You're always good at everything.
No. These are my fail. No. Today are my failures. Number 9 would be not taking advantage when people created opportunity for me. As I look back over my career, there are people that I connected with and people that I met, and they said, call me, let's go to lunch. And I didn't do it I was a bit intimidated in the situation and didn't think they really meant it. And that was a major missed opportunity for me.
Number 10, allowing a short-term negative attitude to impact your long-term thinking. It is so easy. Something goes wrong and you think the world is ending and your sales career is over. False. The sun always comes up in the morning. Hey, great.
Can I add one as a bonus? Because this is a lesson that I really learned. Not taking advantage of fourth quarter, giving up when I wasn't about to hit my sales goal, and not really realizing that I'm in a 6-month lead. So anyway, all right.
I love that because sales is a long game. Anyway, hey, with that, we want to say thank you for listening to Sales Logic this week. If you like what you hear, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. Hey, if something we've said has earned you a single dollar, consider telling a friend about our show because it's how we grow when we help you grow. And check out Sales Logic Podcast. Go to the website and check out the mastermind because we want to see you join. Hey, I'm Mark Hunter.
And I'm Meridith Elliott Powell.
Remember, when you sell with confidence and integrity,
lucky for you, all of this uncertainty is going to become your competitive advantage.
And the sale becomes logical.
All right. We'll see you right back here next week with another to saleslogicpodcast.com. Reach out to me, reach out to Mark, leave us a review. We would love to have that. But more than anything, we love our audience. Join us right back here next week, 8 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you then.